Okay, so welcome back to another episode of The Religious Stripper. I released my first episode like 2 weeks ago and then announced it on my Instagram the following week. Honestly, I was really nervous because it was like, it's sharing my life story, and like a lot of people actually like don't know my life story. Like pretty much everyone I hang out with now has only known me 4 years or less. And they know me as like how I am now, which is totally different from who I used to be in the past, which people from my past know. And I think like everyone who knew me from like 23 and before, they all see me now and they're like, what happened to you? Which is exactly why I'm making this YouTube series, because you know, I always kind of wanted to go back and explain what happened, but it was just like so much that I still didn't understand. And like, you know, I'm not gonna message like every person from college about like the trauma I went through, because I didn't want to. So, you know, but at the end of the day, like it's gotten to the point where it's like, well, I do have a story and it's just like time to share it for people who know me now so that they know where I came from, and for people who knew me before so that like when they see like how I'm like this new person now, they know like why. But also primarily more than that, it's just for like other people who go through similar things, and just like to help people like find their voices and just be like real and genuine with themselves. And understand that like, you know, when you're not treated right, it's okay to leave, and it's okay to be like your real genuine self. So that's kind of what this whole thing is all about. It's not about religious stripping. I'm not religious at all. I've never been a stripper either. But I think it ties in really well because I was a missionary and because, you know, I'm a pole dancer. So yeah, and this just goes into tying into like how I just have gotten here. So that said, I'm coming out with some new merchandise. Social media is like something that I'm building as like a means to my income, I suppose. I'm building like a financial course too to explain like how I make my money. Just because a lot of people don't know how to make money, and the thing is like money is like really super accessible, but like people don't know that, and there's like a way to be an entrepreneur so easily in this day and age and to just make money come from out of nowhere. So I kind of want to share like how I do it. It's not like a 5-step course of like do these things and you'll become a millionaire. It's just like this is how I've strategized my stuff, and how I've done it to like build this cool living for myself. So I just like want to share for those who keep asking. So anyways, off of that, I do have merch coming out. I have this new necklace. It says, it's a little charm, and it says The Religious Stripper on it. Hopefully I can bring that up close enough. There we go. Woo! There it is. The Religious Stripper. So it's just like a really simple necklace. It's going to be up on my website that I'm currently building. That should be out by now by the time I post this, hopefully. But anyways, that's the first charm. I'm going to have 2 more charms come out. One that says Be a Badass Babe, which is the tagline for my company, Rainbow Phoenix, and one that says Be True to You, which I feel like goes in line, which is my personal brand tagline, because I'm all about like women empowerment and like learning to stand up for yourself, even if you've like failed at it in the past, and just learning to be your authentic self, regardless of like what other people say or think, and just like, you know, being like a real person and like loving yourself and like stepping out in that confidence. So that's really like what this whole YouTube series is about and what I'm building. And with that, I just want to say like thank you so much. Like I've had so much like cool feedback come back, and just people just, you know, sending love and like telling me like how brave I am for sharing the story. And so it's cool because it's definitely something I've been nervous about, and my hope is to like really build this into something big. And the only reason I'm starting with sharing my story is that so that as I talk more about like what you can do for yourself or how you can help people in like other situations, you at least know my backstory, so you know that I come from a place of credibility, instead of just sitting here and be like, oh, love yourself, oh, stand up for yourself, and just being like, who is this girl anyway? And like when I post like sexy content on social media, like why I do that. Like I just have been feeling so long I need to explain like why I'm sexy instead of just getting like judgment for being sexy or just having people be like, oh, she just is sexy. Like there's a whole reason to it. There's a whole reason why I went from being a missionary to like a burlesque performer. And that's literally why I'm creating this series and why I'm coming out with this merchandise and everything. And that will all be made clear as I go. So yeah, thanks for listening and for following along. It's been cool that like there has been an interest in people actually listening. And this is something I've been brainstorming on doing for a couple months now. So I'm like really happy I'm finally doing it. I'm also going to be coming out with a new lingerie line. And the reason for that is because, you know, this is called The Religious Stripper. I'm a burlesque performer. I like to be sexy. I have my own bikini line, but I just, you know, I've been asked about having a lingerie line and people have like wanted to see that. So I just feel like it's finally time. So I'm coming out with that soon. I think by the next episode, I'll have like a little update for you. Fingers crossed. But for now, we're starting with the necklaces. The bikini line is already out. You can go check that out. But yeah, just slowly building my way through for this like really huge empire that I want to build, which, you know, I'm sure I'll be explaining throughout the series as I go. All right, so that was 6.5 minutes talking about plans. So let me dive back into my story here. I wanted to talk so much more about like missionary life. It's a little tricky though because I don't want to get people in trouble. I've done like I shouldn't say that. I have to be careful with what I say. I've done a lot of things that are not fully acceptable or legal in different places of the world. So I want to like kind of be careful with like everything I say. But yeah, the reason why I'm going back to that is because I left off talking about my wedding night. God, my ex-husband will hate me if he ever hears that. YouTube, but he probably will. I don't really care though. So anyways, at this point in the story, I'm now married. I've gotten through this like crazy Asian culture of my family. I've gotten through all this academic stress. I've gotten through all these crazy like missionary experiences around the world. And I've gotten through like being homeless for 2 years, and now I'm married. I'm 21 at this point in the story. I'm married, and I'm like, dope. Like, I'm finally free. I'm gonna like make my dreams come true. I'm gonna make everything happen for myself. Like, I'm an adult now, and like this is like I'm just gonna go for it. And I'm married. I'm a wife. So like at this point, I'm really just embracing this like this wife role. And like up till now, I already mentioned how I was like a virgin before I got married. So like I'm a big reader. I was locked in my room a lot, so I read a ton of books. Like I read everything from theology to novels to self-help books. Like just I wanted to like build myself and my brain into this holistic person. It was also like a form of escapism to get away from like the fact that I was stuck in my room. So like one book I read, I forgot what it was called, but it was all about like not kissing until you got married, which is why I did that whole thing where I didn't kiss my ex-husband until like 8 months in, when like we decided we were gonna get married. But off of that note, like I was also researching how to be a good wife, and I'm come from a very Christian religious culture, and my college was very religious. Like they had a joke how like a lot of women went to CBU to get their degree in MRS to be a wife. And so it's just like so heavily impressed to like be a good wife. And like, you know, here I was struggling with my mom, always telling me to like be submissive to my dad, and like how the Bible says it's important to be like a good daughter and to be a good wife and to like listen to the husband or the dad. So like I'm just like totally engulfed in this like mentality, and being Asian too, it's like the man is like everything. He's like the head of the household. The whole world revolves around him. Sorry, I'm trying to cuss less. It's very hard for me, apparently. So, like, everything revolves around the man at this point in my life. Like, my whole life had revolved around my dad till I finally ran away. My life is still revolving around, like, my ex-husband now. And it's like, I just want to make this man happy. I'm just here to serve this man. I'm ready to be, like, a dope wife. Like, I'm going to be, like, such a great wife. And I'm, like, so excited to, like, take on this role. You know, I don't want kids right now, but, like, eventually I'm going to want kids. I want to be a mom, all this stuff. Like, I just want to be, like, that woman of value, you know? Still, like, conservative at this point. Yeah. So, a couple things happen. Like, I feel like, awesome, like, I'm married now. Like, don't have to look for a partner. Check one off the list. Like, there's no way I'm getting a divorce. Like, how would that ever happen? Like, I'm like the perfect Asian Christian daughter. That would never happen. And so I, like, dove into all these, like, projects that I wanted to do. Both me and my ex-husband were creatives for sure. I was entrepreneurial as well, but he was a musician. And so we both enjoyed the arts a lot, which was really cool, which is, I think, why we enjoyed each other's company so much. So he was always, like, really down for all the things I wanted to do. We were pretty inseparable. No, we were super inseparable. We were together all the time. When we went out, we looked like the coolest couple ever. Like, we had so much fun together. And then when we came back, we just, like, fought. And the first year, it was totally fine because, like, we were both unhealthy messes, unhealthy, toxic messes. But, like, we kind of both were. So, like, I think we just kind of found our salvation in each other and just ran with it. And, like, one of us would be psychotic and unhealthy, and then the other trigger the other one into it. And it just kind of, like, was like that, but we were both unhealthy. And it was we were both kind of better than what we had been in the past, and, like, striving for better, and felt like we could achieve better. So, like, we were comfortable in it, I guess, and, like, in its own twisted way, we were happy. But I started, like, locking down into what I wanted to do. So, like, we moved to Orange County, to Fullerton, and I was like, I want to be a dancer in Hollywood. Like, let's slowly move our way out to Hollywood. He wanted to stay in Corona, and I was like, no, Hollywood, 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 all the way. And I was just, like, pushing for it, and he was down. And then I also was still a missionary at the time. So at this point, I had been to China, Rwanda, the Philippines, and Kazakhstan. I'd been to all those places for one reason or another. And, you know, I had done a lot of research. I'd started a lot of creative projects. And so, like, I had a couple things on my mind. I wanted to build a school in Africa. I was, like, set on that. I'll have to do, like, I'll have to do a podcast about that, or an episode about that, because I didn't share about that. I know I've missed things. I'm going to have to go back and refill some gaps. But yeah, I was, like, obsessed with Africa. So I wanted to build a school in Africa. I wanted to be a published author. Because, you know, I just loved books. Books were my salvation and my escape, so I wanted to write. And then I wanted to be a dancer in Hollywood. But I also kind of felt like my window for being a dancer was done, so I thought I would have to go more into directing, which was such a naive train of thought, for a lot of reasons, which I'll explain later. So anyways, yeah, I had all these big, like, really big dreams, and I was like, I'm gonna make these happen. And my ex-husband is just, like, along for the ride, or at that time my husband is along for the ride. So one of the first things we did, these all happened simultaneously, but I guess, okay, so one of the first things we did was, I said how I'd gone to the Philippines. When I came back from the Philippines, I wrote my first book. Well, I had written another, like, short story before then, but it was a novella, not a novel. It wasn't long enough to be a novel. And I had another one before then that I started writing in 5th grade. That was, like, just a kid project. But this was my first full book. I came back from the Philippines. I wrote an entire novel, just barely made the word count limit to be a novel. And it was basically about, so when I went to the Philippines, I went to do a bunch of research. I was on a medical mission. I was there just to like help with paperwork and to like be with the kids and learn about the culture. And so my intention was to research. So I learned all about the like social dynamics, just like how they lived, how the orphanage situation was. And the city I was in, there was a lot of like human trafficking in the past. So after learning all about it, I wrote this book called A Step Outside, about this like kind of selfish man that goes to the Philippines, and he gets caught up in this like brothel scene where he meets this like really seductive prostitute, and then like also like ends up meeting these orphan street children, and ends up getting tied up with them, and they're like on opposite sides of the spectrum, and he gets caught up in the whole whirlwind of it, and these kids are like getting kidnapped and stuff, and he's stuck in the middle. And so basically like, yeah, it was just like a little novel. It's kind of heavy. Like moms like love it though. They cry when they read it. It's a great present for Mother's Day. You can go check it out. I think it's still selling on Amazon. I don't really know though. I haven't checked. I don't talk about it because it was very Christian based. There's like verses in it, and like you can like just literally see my whole mindset of how I used to think back then. And it was very Christian, very religious, very like no sex before marriage kind of a thing, which is why I don't really like talk about it, honestly. But anyways, like, oh, hello, baby. She wanted to join, my little child. So anyways, she just needs some love right now, I guess. Yeah, so I was in the Philippines researching all this, came back, and I think within 9 months I wrote this book. I just hustled and grinded on it and just wrote it all out. And yeah, cute story, but like I took a lot of real life scenarios and stories I had heard and plugged them into it. So there are like a couple of like harder moments to read where it's like, you know, I'm talking about different situations, like how some of these kids had to like consume their own feces to like survive, and just like how sweet these kids are and how they like have pink eye and stuff. So like when I was in the Philippines, I was like with these kids. I just like loved children, and I really felt like my purpose in life was to build schools and work with orphans. So I would just like run around with these kids on the beach, and then I caught pink eye, and literally like my last day in the Philippines, I thought I was gonna die. It was not like American pink eye. My eyes didn't just turn pink, like my eyes turned pink and my whole body like shut down with like a really intense fever. I was in so much pain. Luckily I was with like a ton of doctors, so it was like okay, but I was like on the floor, on a mattress on the floor during the last night while everyone's partying, and I was like, I'm gonna die out here. I just am. I really thought I was. I didn't though. Here I am now. So yeah, it was like, it was pretty rough. And I just like learned a lot. And so when I wrote this book, I just put my heart into it. And you know, I started selling. No. I got a contract. Before I wrote this book, the reason why I wrote it so fast was because I had already written a little production, and the community theater down the street let me create this whole dance production of this story. So I had already done this, like, I don't remember how many acts, like 20 dance acts of the story with like narration and everything to it. And we had performed it at least like 5 times. And then I flew to the Philippines like the following week or something. So that when I came back, like I already had everything in place. I just had to do the research to make sure everything was accurate. And then I had the book done. I started sending it to publishing companies, and I got a hit. And next thing you know, like I get my first contract to have my book published. So I'm going through this process. I'm married. I'm like getting ready with my first book, and going through marketing, having all these talks. They're getting ready to set me up for book signings. And, you know, we're going. I get the first copy of the book. I'm so excited. And then all of a sudden, the company goes bankrupt 3 weeks before my book was supposed to release. Don't hear anything from the company, don't get any compensation back. I already put money down to like get the first set of books out. I was supposed to have like book signings and everything, and just all of a sudden nothing. No reimbursement, nothing. It was something that had happened to a lot of people too. Like, I wasn't the only one. It was really upsetting, and I had already started pre-selling books because that was part of the process. So that was a nightmare. I'm not salty enough to like talk about who the company was. It was a long enough time ago, but whatever. After that though, I was like, well, fuck, I already sold like however many copies. Like, I need to like sell, like I need to send these books. So I learned how to self-publish. I self-published my first set of books. Just ordered a ton. I think my parents might have helped out with like ordering some, or my grandparents or something. And I had my first book. I started doing, I think I did a book signing. I think I only did one book signing, but I started like building that aspect of my life because I thought I was going to be an author. God, I was such a different person back then. I still had like a lot to learn about the publishing company, like how to publish and stuff. But that was kind of the road that I was on at the time, and kind of what I thought I wanted. So yeah, that was like my first step of becoming a published author, and how I did that. At that time, you know, I'm married. I wrote the book before we got married, and it was shortly after that, after publishing that book, that me and my ex-husband decided we were going to go to Uganda. So the first, or like while we were engaged, I didn't travel anywhere for a year. And usually I go to at least one place a year. But then the following year I was like, I got to go somewhere. Like, I just, you know, I can't not travel. Like, I have to travel at least once a year. And so the opportunity came to go to Uganda, Africa. And I was like, yeah, like, I want to go back to Africa. I love Africa. Like, I want to be in Africa. We're going to Africa. And now that I think about it, like, my poor ex-husband, I did just, like, constantly be like, we're just going to do this. And then we would. But I think he loved it. Like, I always got him out of his comfort zone. I always took him to all these cool places. I, in time, eventually felt like I was being really used because I was giving him all these cool opportunities that he wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But, you know, it was what it was. So, anyways, we decided we're going to go to Africa. And at the end of the day, like, I wanted him with me. So, I don't know, it's on me too. So, yeah, we go to Africa. And I'm going to have to go back and talk about my time in Rwanda. I'll probably do that the next podcast to talk about like why I'm so obsessed with Africa. But at this time we're going to Uganda, and like I'm stoked because I like love Rwanda so much. Like, I can't even explain to you guys how madly in love I was with Rwanda. Like, I claimed that country as my, I was really gung-ho about the Rwanda. Even the Rwandans were like, wow, you love our country more than we do. And I was like, yeah, I really do. So anyways, yeah, we go to Uganda. I'm so stoked. And basically we get there and it's nothing like Rwanda. At all. It's like when you go to Mexico thinking Mexico's right next to America, so it's gonna be just like America, and you get to Mexico and you're like, whoa, what is this? This is not what I thought it would be. Which, don't get me wrong, I love Mexico. I've been multiple times, and I do love Uganda too, but not like how I love Rwanda. So anyways, we get to Uganda and we go to Luwero, Uganda. There has never been a white person in Luwero, Uganda until this point. Or at least that's what I was told. So yeah, and it doesn't look like there's been a white person there either. They had a war 30 years prior to us being there, and everything was still like super torn down, like super, super rural. You'd like drive down the street and see like these torn down houses. There's like animals like running around, and they sent us with security too, because there was like a really intense like demon worshiping culture there. And like being like the first Americans there, it was like, you know, you didn't want like your heart to get eaten out or something, you know? So I love my life. So anyways, yeah, we're in Uganda, Africa. And, you know, they offered to like get us a hotel and everything. And I was like, no, that's not how I travel, which is so funny considering how I am now. But at the time I was like, no, like I like to live with the people. I want to be with the people. I want the real experience. Don't pamper me. Like I want to like live and breathe like what it's like to be you guys, especially like at this point, like the reason that we're going is to like go and speak at churches, but like also I'm going to like get real research for the second book that I'm writing. I'm going to go grab these books right now before I forget. Let me pause this. Okay, I'm back. I have a podcast that I'm building of this as well, so that hopefully you can listen to it on Spotify. Hopefully by the time I post this one, I'll have that figured out, but I really don't know how to do that yet, so as of right now, it's not figured out, so you can't listen to it as a podcast. Okay, anyways, okay, so this was the first book. This was the one that the publishing company did, that they designed. They made this cover. I thought it was so cool. I got in touch with the guy who created this. He's really good. I don't remember his name right now though, but yeah, this was my book. This was me when I was 21. Oh, look, so dramatic. What a drama queen. I'm just thinking about all my friends who might actually watch this. I realized like some of my best friends like watched the first episode and I was like, oh no. So if any of my like other friends that I have are watching this, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very like real because of being a live streamer. I've just gotten like way too comfortable on camera. But whatever, like, I guess if you're my friends, like you should already know me pretty well. So you just don't know this side of my story, I guess. But okay, so then this is the second book. This is the one that I had to self-publish that should still be selling on Amazon. Hopefully it is. Honestly, I don't really know. I don't really like want to go and check because like, God, it's just like so religious. It's just so Christian and I don't really know that like I want people to like know how I used to think, but it is a cute story. Like I'll say that much. Like, if you are, like, Christian stuff, you'd be like, oh my God, this book is so cute. But anyways, this is the one about, like, the human trafficking in the Philippines and the orphans there and just, like, becoming a better person. So this is my second book. Those were the same book, by the way. This is the second one. This one's called Nankunda. I'm not gonna lie, like, this one is not for moms. The other one is for moms. This one is more of a horror story. Like, I think a lot of people who did read it were not able to stomach it. I did not mean to write a horror story either. That was, like, not my intention. But this is, like, a really intense book. So, yeah, there. Look at that. More of a drama queen, but a little more mature now. So yeah, this book though, so this is like an actual picture that I took. So this is what I was talking about when I was saying like the houses were torn down and the war had happened 30 years prior, but they still hadn't rebuilt. So like the war in Rwanda had happened like 20 years prior to when I went and they had rebuilt like so cool, but Uganda, or at least like Luero hadn't. So anyways, so I went with the intention of like, I'm here to like research for this book. I already had like, this started out as a short story that got published at my college. And then like, I wanted to expand it out to a real story. And I took experiences and stories from both Rwanda and Uganda and kind of put them in. But it does take place in Uganda because it's all about the child army in Uganda. That was a thing. So when I went, I had them read like the beginning of my book and I was like, I want to make sure this is like true to the T. Like, tell me what you think. Tell me, like, I want your approval on this if I'm going to like publish this. Like, you know, what do you think? And I'll never forget, there was this pastor called Pastor Freddie. And he read the first couple chapters and he was like, this is really well written, this is really good. But to be honest, like, it's not graphic enough. Like, you have to understand, like, what our country went through and how intense it was and how bad it was. And he was alive during this. Like, he had escaped from the war and had to, like, walk through, like, the swamp or whatever to survive. It was a long time ago that I went, so I don't fully remember everything. But I do remember he started telling me stories. And I was just like, oh my God. I don't know if I want to get like that deep on this like podcast series thing, but it was like intense stuff. And I think like when you're actually there with the people that like witness these things, you're like, wow, this is heavy. Like even in Rwanda, like you would see like remnants of what had happened. And it was like really intense. I'll talk about Rwanda later again. I've said that 3 times now, so I think you get the point. But yeah, Uganda like went through like some really intense stuff, and I put that into the book. Like I got home and I adjusted the book and made it more true and like added in more of these like real life stories that they told me into the book. And then I just remember when I published it, I called my mom and I was like, yeah, so like what do you think? And she was like, wow, Alyssa, you know, it's good, but honestly, I had to put it down and I wasn't able to finish it. Or I think she finished it. I think my grandma couldn't finish it. It's a really intense book. But the only reason why it's so intense was because like I wanted to really capture like these stories that these people were telling me and like have their voices heard. Which, like, honestly, like, that one should still be on Amazon as well. I do recommend reading it, like, especially if you like thrillers. But, like, it's not really one you want to read before you go to bed. Like, I'll never forget. I think I already mentioned in this series how when I was in Uganda, there was a demon exorcism. And I'll never forget going to sleep that night and just, like, laying there being like, oh, my God, where am I? And just being terrified that, like, these, like, what are they called? Cannibals were just gonna, like, come around the house and, like, try to eat me, like. Okay, my bad. I ran out of space for a second there. But yeah, anyways, as I was saying, it just, like, it wasn't impossible for, like, demon-possessed cannibals to, like, come out of fucking nowhere. I'm sorry, I'm trying to stop the cussing. To come out of nowhere and, like, break into the house and try to eat us. And I was like, oh my God, the devil knows I'm here. We just like exorcised this demon and spoke in church and said some powerful stuff that everyone agreed with. He's gonna come. Oh my God. Yeah, it was like, I was terrified that night. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, Uganda, yo. That was my experience there. It was intense, but it was really beautiful too. As I keep going, like I'm trying to go in a fairly linear order right now, but as I keep going, it's gonna start getting more like out of order because I'll just remember things as I go that I want to go back to. But yeah, so that was like my journey as like a published author. I had that manuscript written for years and just sat on it because after my first experience, like I was so heartbroken about what had happened, how the company went bankrupt and I lost my money. But you know, and then like it's like, well, there's so much more I need in place. There's so much to publishing. It's like writing the book is only half the battle. It might only be a third of the battle, honestly. And then like there's so much more past that, which I now like know and learned. And at some point I would love to get back into writing again, but it's just not really something that I feel I want to put my time and energy into at this moment in my life. Maybe after this series, like once I finish this up, I'll get back into it. But yeah, publishing is like a whole nother whirlwind. So I sat on that book for a long time and, you know, it was really close to my heart, but I didn't want to publish it. It wasn't until quarantine happened. I was like, you know, I need some money. Like, might as well just like self-publish this book. I don't have to invest any money in it, and just like if anyone wants to like read it, like dope, I'll make some money. So that's what I did because I was just sitting on it for all these years. But yeah, like I said, like I think a lot of people weren't prepared for how intense it was going to be. But it is a really good story. You know, it's about this kid that gets sucked up in the child army and about his relationship with his mom. My two books are about family dynamics for sure, because as the series explains, that's been a struggle for me. So it's something that I tend to explore a lot, just like relationships to parents and parent figures and, you know, that dynamic. So both my books like are really about that. But yeah, feel free to check those out. I just wanted to share about like what it was like as a published author and that struggle. And again, like why nobody saw it coming that I was gonna like take such an intense 180. So at this point in my life, I'm now married. I'm now the first Western woman to go to Luweero, Uganda as a teenage missionary. I'm sorry, I'm not a teenager anymore, as a missionary. And I'm now a published Christian author. So like, you know, and these are the things that I'm known for. You know, I'm known for my academics and for being like a really good girl and like for being a missionary. Like, this is where the title The Religious Stripper comes in. And yeah, so I think, how much more do I want to dive into in this series? I think I might end this episode. It's been a decent amount of time. Yeah, it's been like 40 minutes almost. So I'll dive more into like what else was going on at that point in my life while I was married. And then I'm going to get into, I guess like how I ended up in Hollywood, how my marriage fell apart, and then like what like actually like broke in my head. Okay, nothing broke in my head, but like just the snap I had that made me switch. But I feel like I have to go back and talk about Rwanda for sure. But yeah, we're getting there. For those of you who have been waiting for like what 4 years for me to like share this story, I'm getting there. I know I had plenty of DMs of people being like, "What happened to you?" Oh my God. So you're welcome. Here's your answer. I'm just telling the whole world my whole life story, but whatever. Like I said, I have like, there's a reason why I'm sharing the story. It's not just like to be like, oh, here's my life for everyone to hear. Like, I'm building something. So I'm just going to leave it at that. You have to listen to the end of the series to find out what, because I'm a burlesque dancer, meaning I'm a professional tease, so I'm not just going to share it all out at the get-go. So, all right, have a great day. Be a badass babe. Check out my new necklace, which is hopefully up on my website that I have not designed yet, but hopefully by the time I release this, it will be out. And yeah, have a beautiful day. Be true to you.